never imagined I'd be the kind of man sitting in a divorce attorney's office at 52. But life has a way of blindsiding you. What I truly never saw coming was finding out that my wife of 23 years had been quietly planning to take everything from me, including the house I'd built with my own two hands. Veronica and I first crossed paths in college. She was studying interior design, and I was working toward my contractor's license. On paper, we seemed like the perfect match. She had the creative vision, and I had the craftsmanship to bring it to life. In 2003, we bought our first plot of land. Veronica would doodle our dream home on napkins, while I calculated load-bearing walls and foundation expenses. It took 3 years to finish the house. I handled nearly all the labor myself, only hiring help for the plumbing and electrical work. Veronica picked every light fixture, every paint shade, every detail of the trim. Back then, she'd bring me lunch at the site, and we'd perch on sawhorses, talking about which room would someday be the nursery. Those children never came. After years of trying and enduring several heartbreaking miscarriages, we stopped speaking about it. The house sometimes felt too big, but it was ours. Every plank, every nail, every late night I spent laying tile. I believed those hours were ours together. The cracks began to show around our 20th anniversary. Veronica became withdrawn, critical. She complained that I was more devoted to my construction business than to her. When I came home covered in sawdust, she'd wrinkle her nose like I was something unpleasant. The same woman who once proudly brought me sandwiches on the job now looked down on my work. I tried to fix it. I planned date nights, suggested counseling, even offered a tropical getaway. Every attempt was met with the same icy refusal. I began to suspect she might be having an affair, but there was no proof. No strange texts, no unexplained absences, no foreign perfume. What I uncovered was far worse. It was a Saturday morning in March. I was replacing a loose floorboard in our bedroom. The old place settled a lot. I had just pulled up a few boards when I heard voices downstairs. Veronica's tone on the phone made me stop cold. "The lawyer says I need proof of his drinking," she said. "No, he doesn't really drink much, but who's going to know? I've been saving empty bottles in the garage." My blood ran ice cold. "The house is the priority," she went on. "Everything else we can split, but I'm getting that house. I put 23 years into that place. I deserve it after what I've put up with." What she had put up with. I was the one living with someone who treated me like a stranger. "Once I get the house, I'll sell it right away. The market's good. Then I can move and start fresh. Maybe Phoenix, like we talked about." Phoenix? She had never mentioned Phoenix to me. I stayed completely still, knees pressed to the joists, listening to my wife calmly plot the dismantling of my life with someone I couldn't place. She talked about hiding money, claiming I was emotionally abusive, and how her lawyer thought she could get alimony for 5 years. When the call ended, I waited another 20 minutes before moving. My mind was spinning. This was the woman I'd built a home for, held through miscarriages, loved through every season, and she was planning to destroy me with lies. That day, I made a choice. I went to an electronics store and bought a small digital recorder. Nothing fancy, just long battery life and clear audio. I told Veronica I was picking up materials for a kitchen project, which wasn't entirely untrue. I stopped at the lumber yard to keep the story straight. That night, I hid the recorder behind a picture frame in our bedroom. The next day, I left for work as usual, but returned during lunch knowing she'd be home. She was on the phone again. This time, she was even bolder. She talked about timing the divorce for maximum damage to my business. She planned to say my construction work was unsafe for children. Ironic, since we'd never had any. She even laughed at the thought of me trying to keep the house, saying I had no idea what was coming. "He thinks because he built it, it's his," she said. "But I've been planning this for 2 years. My lawyer says I can take everything." 2 years. While I was scrambling to save our marriage, she was preparing to gut it. For 3 weeks, I gathered recordings. Each one was worse than the last. Her talking about forging papers, lying to family and friends about me, secretly moving money into a hidden account. The worst part was her laughter. She actually found it amusing that I was clueless, even joking about how I might cry when served with the divorce papers. 6 weeks later, Veronica finally asked for a divorce. We sat in the living room, the same room where we'd once dreamed about the future, held each other through grief, and she told me she couldn't pretend to be happy anymore. "I want a clean break," she said. "We can split things fairly, but I need the house. It's important to me." I just nodded. No arguing. No scene. I suggested we get lawyers to handle everything properly. She smiled at that, actually smiled. The divorce was brutal. Her lawyer painted me as a distant, emotionally unavailable husband. They painted me as a man who valued his job more than his marriage. They accused me of drinking too much, of being careless with money, of hiding assets. Each claim was a blade to the chest, not because any of it was true, but because it came from the woman who had once sworn to stand by me through everything. During depositions, I sat there and listened as my wife rewrote the story of our marriage with such conviction that, for a moment, I almost doubted my own memories. My lawyer was good, but Veronica's attorney was a shark, the kind with a reputation for tearing cases apart. They had paperwork for everything. Photos of empty beer bottles, statements from friends saying I'd been distant at gatherings, even a fabricated report accusing me of verbal abuse during an argument that never happened. The preliminary hearing went exactly how Veronica had scripted it. The judge granted her temporary possession of the house and ordered me to pay alimony in the meantime. I ended up in a cramped studio above my office, eating takeout and wondering how 23 years of marriage had ended here. That's when my lawyer sat me down and told me to prepare for the worst. She's going to get the house, he said. Her legal team is too strong, and she's selling the image of the wronged wife perfectly. Unless you have something we don't, you need to start thinking about life after this. I did have something, but I hadn't told him. The final hearing was set for a Tuesday in November. I sat in court and watched Veronica play the part flawlessly. She wore a simple navy dress, barely any makeup, her voice soft and mournful as she testified. She spoke about my so-called drinking problem, my emotional absence. She claimed she'd put her career aside to support my business, and that she deserved the house's payback for years of neglect. It was an Oscar-worthy performance. If I hadn't spent 3 weeks listening to her secretly plan every lie, I might have believed her myself. When the judge asked if there was any final evidence, my lawyer glanced at me. We discussed this moment. I gave a single nod. Your Honor, my attorney said. My client has audio recordings he believes are relevant to these proceedings. Veronica's face drained of color. For the first time in months, she looked directly at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before: fear. The first recording was her, clear as day, talking about hiding money and making up stories about my drinking. The courtroom was silent as her laughter echoed through the speakers, mocking how unaware I was. The second recording was worse, her outlining the false abuse claims and her secret bank accounts. By the time the third clip played, her lawyer was objecting nonstop, but the judge overruled him. The recordings were relevant and legally captured in my own home. When they finished, the judge turned to Veronica with an expression sharp enough to freeze ice. She was crying, but not with the gentle, sympathetic tears she'd been offering all trial. These were tears of pure panic. Mrs. Patterson, the judge asked, do you have any explanation for what we just heard? She tried to claim the audio was taken out of context, that she'd just been venting, that people say things they don't mean when they're upset. The judge wasn't buying it. Based on the evidence, he said, it is clear the petitioner has committed fraud upon this court. Not only am I denying her request for the marital home, but I am awarding the respondent full ownership of all marital assets as compensation for the attempted deception. Veronica sank into her chair. Her lawyer was already packing his bag, probably calculating how fast he could distance himself from a client who had just committed perjury in open court. The house was mine. The business was mine. Even the account she'd been funneling money into was frozen and transferred to me. But the real win wasn't the assets. It was watching 23 years of lies collapse in front of everyone. Knowing the truth had finally been heard. I still live in the house I built. Sometimes, I walk through those rooms and think about the woman who once dreamed of our future in them. I don't hate Veronica, but I don't miss her either. She showed me exactly who she was, and I'm grateful I learned before she could destroy everything I'd built. The place feels different now, bigger, quieter, but more honest. It's mine alone, and that's exactly how it should be.